Sir Rahul Magan here is a Chief Executive Officer of Treasury Consulting PT Limited, which is a Singaporean multinational group. And today we are going to cover a very fresh topic, which basically an asset class which we are adding in a Treasury Consulting portfolio. As you very well understand that Treasury Consulting is a multinational group, we being headquartered in Singapore, and on 17th of June we are launching our second office in Singapore. Our endeavor is quite clear that we wanted to be a big four. We wanted to be an entity who covers everything except one, which is audit. Maybe in future course of time we would cover the audit also. When I'm saying audit refers to the statutory audit. I'm not referring to the information technology audits and different like forensic audits, which we can very well cover. Now we are launching an asset class, basically a concept which is known as Islamic Banking and Islamic Finance on our YouTube channel, and our fixed income platform, which is www.fixedincome.global, would have a dedicated desk for Islamic financing, which would be coming somewhere in September and October, because the second phase of the fixed income platform, which is scheduled for June, is covering family office investment desk and the pension office desk. And October-November we would be launching, September-October we would be launching Islamic Finance Desk also. In this video we are going to cover about Islamic financing, what exactly it's all about, and so on and so forth. And we are extremely privileged that, like in the private placement platform, wherein we started 1 year ago, and today Treasury Consulting is a name in private placement, and similarly we would be adding so many videos about Islamic banking that we soon would be the name in the Islamic banking. I'll assure you we will link a lot of concepts in the economic banking, including auditing, accounting, and the asset construction, the sukuk bonds, the pricing of tangibles, intangibles, and so on and so forth. Now basically, if we look today, now we have two kind of banking systems across the globe. One is the conventional banking system, which is known as the Western world banking system, and one is the Islamic banking system. Now the Western world banking system is dependent upon a lot of indexes, a lot of codes, a lot of currencies, and so on and so forth. On the contrary, if you look at the Islamic banking system, this is more or less an individual system which is slowly growing up. In fact, if I go with the report of a major bank, without quoting the name, globally the assets across the assets under management across the globe is approximately $200 trillion. Approximately. I don't take any authenticity of these numbers because this is being reported by a bank, so I never counted it, right? On the contrary, if I go with the reports, which is also in the social media, this suggests that Sukuk Finance is having an asset base of approximately 1.7 to $2.5 trillion, which is almost equals to 1.5% of that. So on an asset class note, Sukuk Finance is having a very less, basically almost 1% of the asset base comparison to the conventional Western market. If we look from the market perspective, then we need to see that currently there are two major platforms for Islamic finance. One is MENA, which is Middle East and North Africa, and one is the Western world. When it comes to MENA, we have the following countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, UAE, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Tunisia, Bangladesh, Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, Qatar, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and could be Malta also. Malta Financial Center. When it comes to the Western world, now Western world slowly picking up the Islamic finance. Like taking an example of the world largest, not the largest amongst the global financial center, which is Singapore. In this list, you can see that there are three global financial centers, which is Australia, which is Singapore, and which is Japan. Because overall we have several global financial centers, but take the top five, which is United States, Singapore, United States, Singapore, Australia, London, Luxembourg, Frankfurt. So we have Australia, Singapore, Tokyo we have here, Luxembourg we have here. So almost we have 3 and 4 there in this list. Slowly Sukuk Finance is picking up very fast. Islamic banking is picking up is very fast. Currently we have at least 4 Islamic banks in Dubai. Bahrain is acting as an offshore center for Islamic bank. It's acting as an offshore center for Islamic bank. Now offshore center for Islamic Bank. Like take an example of a Singapore. In a Western world, we have one thing which is conventional banking, and in conventional banking we have one word which is known as deliverable and non-deliverable market. Now when it comes to the non-deliverable market, we have always the first thing which is coming in the mind is Singapore, because Singapore is the hub of non-deliverable market. On the contrary, when it comes to, on the similar lines, when it comes to the Sukuk finance, when we refer to an offshore center, we always refers to Bahrain and Dubai. Because the first, the Islamic Bank that turned up in Dubai, which is somewhere in 1975, and now, if I might be wrong, there are I think 4 and 5 Islamic Bank, and there are multiple financial institutions in UAE, United Arab Emirates, which are basically in this market. Now, Islamic financing is basically based on a lot of concept. Now, today being an introductory video, so slowly we will add step by step. Now, first of all, the concept like riba. Riba stands for the interest which you are earning. Conventional banking is based upon interest. If I lend you $100 or you lend me $100, we agree to an interest. That is a different part, that banking has gone up to a higher level. Now you have a floaters, you have ARS, you have VRDO, you have so many different concepts through which you can calculate the interest. Now we have a concept wherein the value of the assets also changes with the with the interest rate. That's a different part, that the India do not have that kind of interest rate and would never have, because the pessimist attitude of central banker would always be there. On the contrary, Islamic banking is totally against riba. Sharia is totally against riba. So interest payment cannot be happen. So if any company, let's take an example of a company, say, I'm taking a hypothetical example, Dubai Investments Limited. Assuming they wanted to invest somewhere in Bahrain. So there is an asset class for which they wanted to invest, and they estimated that they would be requiring at least $2.5 billion of funding upfront. So they estimated that they would be needing $2.5 billion of funding upfront. So what they're going to do, they will going to be issuing Sukuk bonds. Now when they would be issuing the Sukuk bonds, the investor basically who is investing in a Sukuk bonds need to invest that he is not investing for interest. He will not get any interest. So if this company would invest in London, US, Switzerland, and different, like a conventional Western banking, they would be getting an interest. It could be fixed interest, it could be floating interest. On the contrary, when they would invest in Sukuk bond, they will not get an interest, which is in Sharia known as riba. So they will not get any riba, so they don't get any interest. On the contrary, these investors who invest there will get share in that asset class. So basically it is the same thing like we have in the corporate finance. When the value of the asset would grow, the value of which is ultimately nothing but your interest. Now let's take an example which is nothing but a corporate finance theory. There are many companies across the globe. I would like to link this with an example of Apple Inc., a company which practically needs no introduction across the globe. When Mr. Jobs was there, Steve Jobs always suggested that you should not go for dividend, rather not only dividend but also the buyback. You should invest the money in the business. You should launch new products so that the company valuation will get rise, and the share price at which the people is buying, it will continue to rise. I think that was one of the reasons why while during the Steve, the share price has rose to an exorbitant level, and after him, Apple was the most valuable company in this world, which is even today. So Steve always used to believe that if you bought a share at $100 for Apple, and because of a fresh product, could be Mac Air Book, and there are a number of different products, right? Apple turned out to be $300 company, $300 per share company. So it is a value. Now similarly is the case for Amazon also. Nobody ever thought that companies like Amazon will reach to $1,500 per share. So if you bought a share, suppose you had bought a share at $10, $20 when Amazon was a pretty young company. Today it is a $1,500. So everything is your capital gain. Similarly is the stuff which we have in the Sukuk bonds, whereby you are not allowed to pay an interest because Sharia is against that. So what you would do, you are going to give them an ownership in the asset, and once the value will go up, of course, this is nothing but a deemed interest which you're getting. Of course, if something is coming in your mind that what would if the value would get down, that is perfect part. That is not a different thing. This is set. This might happen. Sukuk finance is basically sukuk bonds of multiple type. There are 5 kind of sukuk bonds which we are going to be discussing tomorrow. Like when you have the most common is once you will create the SPV, which is an offshore location. So slowly we would be covering, we would be demystifying the concept that how can you create offshore SPV, then how can you create a trust there, and so on and so forth. So there are multiple things that we are going to be discussing in that. This was an introductory video about Islamic banking. My personal viewpoint towards Islamic banking is that it is a wonderful concept. Agree, if somebody is saying and they saying that you're not paying an interest, then I always wanted to say that in fact in Western banking also we have a concept whereby people not paying the dividends. There are a lot of companies across the globe who are always resisted from paying the dividends, and when by the time Steve was here, in fact Apple also resisted a lot in paying the dividend. Like today Apple going for $100 billion of buyback. I'm sure if Steve would have been there, this would have been impossible in the history of Apple. But as he's not there, so I don't want to comment it, right? His company is willing to spend $100 billion on a buyback, which practically is not right. So this concept is already here. So Sukuk finance is nothing different. That is a different thing, that they are not paying interest. They are relying on a capital appreciation. Of course, last but not the least, one thing which you should very well understand in Sukuk finance before investing, of course, a lot of videos would be coming, is which asset class of Sukuk finance you are investing. There are 5 kind of asset class which you are, there are 5 types of asset class which we have in Sukuk finance. And the most complicated is asset based and asset backed. 99% of the people who are watching this, they must be thinking that what is the difference between asset based and asset backed? There is, boss. There is a difference between asset based and asset backed in Sukuk finance. How to create the SPV, which tangible assets you are doing, how to calculate the valuation. These all are contemporary questions which we need to answer, and Treasury Consulting would surely be answering these questions for you. Last thing which I want to tell you, that there are a lot of similarities also when it comes to Islamic banking and Islamic banking and conventional Western banking. Then that similarities we will also going to be exploring. Now this is an introductory video. We first of all thank you all for making our YouTube channel a wonderful success. It's been more than 10 million minutes. We crossed approximately 7,000 subscribers and approximately 505 videos. So with the blessings of Lord, things are going pretty good. We all are set to launch at least 150 videos in the next 100 days. You might notice that every day we are launching more than 2 videos. Tomorrow we will discuss what is Sukuk finance, what are the types of Sukuk finance, and hopefully every day, every alternate day, we will start demystifying the Islamic banking and Islamic finance. You're most welcome to visit our Skype Rahul5327, our platform www.fixedincome.global, website www.treasuryconsulting.in, mobile 9899242978, email is rahul.magan@treasuryconsulting.in. We would like to thank you very much, and there are multiple things on the way. Have a wonderful time ahead. Thank you.